My name is Sai Momoli. I'm known over here as Sai. I currently live in the city of Carson. Been here for about 40 years. I was born in Honolulu, Hawaii back in 1953. My mother and father are from American Samoa. My dad is Pulu Salangoa Momoli from Lauli'i. My mom is Inalau Ayumu from Pango. My dad was a career Navy man. He came over with the 1952 first Fita Fita group that came on a ship with my older brothers and sisters. When they settled in Hawaii with the Navy, I was born in Hawaii. I was raised there until I was about 12 years old. My dad got a station switch over to San Diego, so we moved to San Diego. He was in the Navy. He retired out of San Diego. We moved up to Carson because of the job opportunities. A lot of the Samoans back in the 1960s, when we first came up here, there was very few of us, but most of them were all Navy families. We had maybe 10 big families that were here, but we all knew each other from Hawaii, from military installations that we all grew up on. I went to Banyan High School, attended Banyan High School here. Me and my brother attended the school. From San Diego up to Carson, we came in 1967. And in 1967, we first lived in Wilmington, California. And I was raised, we started junior high school, Wilmington Junior High School there. There was probably 10 Samoans. We all knew each other. We all hung out together. There's probably a dozen families altogether that were actually here. We all had, everybody had about maybe 8 to 12 kids, so everybody knew each other from here. And I think the majority of the Samoans that we were probably second generation here. First generation to attend public school in Carson. We are probably the first generation. A lot of problems, social issues that were here because Samoans here were considered like an outcast type of group. We earned our reputation because we didn't take too many comments that were negative towards us. We usually were fighters. You know, if somebody says something negative to one of us, it wasn't just one of us that ended up fighting with the other people. It's usually about 10 or 12 of us. And everybody kind of knew that. And then we had an older group, I know that when I was growing up, and they started their own little clique and or their own little gang way back then in the 60s, which was called the Matais. The Matais were our older brothers that kind of, you know, they weren't too interested in playing sports or anything else, just trying to get through high school. When we came through, it was a whole different thing where they tried to impress us that, you know, use your skills and get in the weight room, get buffed up. The coaches saw us saying, yeah, you guys can do this, play football, do sports. But a lot of the older brothers, they were pretty kept close by the parents. You know, they hardly ever did anything besides helping the parents all the time. You know, that was back in their days, and they tried to pass that on to us. But the older Samoan kids, they had their own little group, and yeah, they were always trying to impress us with what we should be doing. Don't follow what they did. Gangs back then were more of a social thing, not this type of thing of getting together, making profits. The Matais were like I guess it was considered a Samoan gang. You know, but it was more of a social thing where if we come together, or if we go with older guys that see that we're Samoan, and they'll ask us, okay, do you know so and so? Yeah, they belong to the Matais, and it kind of shut everything down. Well, these guys they know the older Samoan clique, so they leave us alone. So we kind of use that as a crutch. Yeah. And a lot of them, you know, were as talented as, you know, to get on the football field, but didn't take advantage of it. But like I said, during that time in the early 60s, Samoans were like one at a time, 2 or 3. The wave came when, I guess, when our group came through. The wave came when we had at least 10 or more Samoans coming out. Banning had about 20, Carson had about 50. We all just started playing, but the coaches picked up on, hey, these guys can do things, you know. So we're kind of, I think, I know when I was at Wilmington Junior High School, my brother moved up to the 10th grade at Banning High School, and they asked him to play football, and that was back in '67. When he played football, there was other Samoans playing football out there. But then it's just like all of our guys got together and we said, let's go out and try this out, play football. So in '67, a lot of the guys that were sophomores and juniors came out there to play at Carson and Banning. And the coaches knew that we were pretty good because they've had other Samoans back, maybe 1 or 2. But now they were getting almost close to a dozen or more. And yeah, they just treated us like we were royalty. You know, they give us classes that were easy. You know, they did all the things to help you get to the football field, but not to the college level. And that's a kind of, it's been like that since '67 all the way, I think, but maybe until now. It was funny because back in those days, when we got on the football field, the guys I knew at Carson, when we played against them, everybody was talking. And it wasn't like, you know, okay, hey, you know, we'll come up to the line and guys will start saying what the plays are. You know, we start knowing what the plays are, we'll laugh at each other, but we still try to knock each other's head off. Ferragamo was more involved with getting college coaches on his campus to see the kids, to promote them. Carson never did that. Carson was always play and, you know, that's it. Yeah. Valnego was a great coach back when we were coming up. In fact, Valnego, Carson High School was rated number 1 in the nation in 1970, 1971. They were undefeated for 2 years straight. They were rated number 1 in the nation. So everybody knew about Carson through the football program. But all the guys that played those years, he had an all-Samoan line, all Samoan running backs. They were unstoppable, you know. And this was my brother-in-law and a bunch of other kids back in '70, '71. When I was a 10th grader, I was a defensive back or an outside linebacker. I only weighed like about 175 pounds back then. But I had a brother that played wide receiver and kickoff returns and all that. And he was a senior back then. So I kind of went off of what he did and tried to, you know, follow his footsteps, because he's probably one of the best players back in our time back then. And he could have made it to any school. You know, he could have, UCLA was recruiting him, all kinds of colleges were recruiting him. But the same thing happened to him. When he came his senior year, his academics fell. To him, he disappointed the family. He was totally embarrassed about it. He was, you know, he had a lot of things coming his way that he could have taken advantage if he kept his grades up. But they told him that he'd have to come back to summer school. He couldn't walk to graduation. And so it kind of, it hurt the family, hurt my parents really bad, because they saw how good he was, and it hurt everybody as far as the schools that wanted him. So because of that, he joined the military. And when he joined the military, he went through a lot of things that he saw what he was doing wrong and started talking to me about it. Unfortunately, he passed away during the Vietnam era during that time, and we buried him. I was just becoming a junior back then. So when he passed away, all of our guys that were together back then kind of, we didn't even try to go out for sports. We kind of just stayed out of it, which was the wrong thing to do, you know, because we were more in depression rather than trying to help ourselves out. We were busy thinking about what went through his mind, went through, you know, look what happened to him, you know, and not learning from it, you know. Nowadays, with my kids and my grandkids, you know, I bought into education. I really believe that education is the only way that these guys are going to make it out of here or make it through life. And being community servants is something that my dad passed along to me, and I'm trying to pass along to my kids. That you know, you can go to work, you can do everything, but you also need to help other people out. You know, to me, that's more rewarding than a paycheck. I think the biggest difference when we were growing up, we were more unified. Kids from Long Beach knew us. We can go all the way down to Santa Ana. Our families down there. We all accepted each other from Santa Ana all the way up to here. That they were all Samoan, we're all family. Culture was a real connection. Nowadays, it seems the kids are into the social environment, the present social environment, where it's a neighborhood type mentality. You know, this is my turf. Carson is my area. You're in Long Beach, and you know, you might be first cousins, but you're a different group. You're an SOS member. You're a Scott Park Crip member. All that kind of stuff plays in now, which separates us. You know, and that's the thing that I see now, is that there's no unity out there that brings them all together, besides that they are Samoan and that their culture is there. You know, I've noticed when the kids do get together, that's probably the main thing that keeps the violence down or the trouble down, is that if the Samoans get together, it is a culture thing. Samoans do help out Samoans sometimes. Not all that, but the Long Beach schools, other LA Unified schools, the kids are bright, they're smart. But it's just, like I said, the environment isn't there for them to get anywhere. From Wilmington to Carson, if there was anything that was going wrong with Carson Samoans, us that live in Wilmington knew about it. They'd come and talk to us about it. We'd get together. We had a lot of good people, a lot of good kids that are our age and going through high school. From Big John to Ale, Vienna, to a lot of those guys were the ones that really wanted us to move up to a better level, you know, to play the sports, to get a better education, to do positive things. So that kind of instilled in us when they were going through, when they were in their mid-20s, telling us the best things to do. In 2000, all our friends got together to throw a reunion for the Samoan Athletes in Action, Big John, which was a very good friend of ours back in high school. He passed away. So we had a 25-year reunion that we threw back then. From that, the city of Carson gave us funding for that. And they told us, you know, this is something that's good. And a lot of our guys that weren't doing anything were just waiting for something to look for a cause, to do something to help out. They all joined up, we all played golf, raised a lot of money, we did our stuff, and then we put it into a scholarship back in 2000. Several years later, we were still throwing golf tournaments to raise money for the kids. The principal at Carson High back in 2002, I think it was, asked me if I could come on campus at Carson High, because there's a lot of conflict up there between not only the Samoans and other groups, but Samoans and Samoans. So I said, yeah, sure, we'll go check it out. And then he kind of took me into the guidance counselor's office, showed me a lot of the statistics of the Samoan kids and how bad they were doing, telling us that, you know, he doesn't know what to do. You know, the football program was going down the tubes. You know, how can we help the sports program out? Academic-wise, there was just nothing. So he had asked if we could do something to help him out. So we formed a group called Pacific American Student Services. The formation of the group the intent was just to raise money to get to the kids, to try to see what we can do for tutoring, for school projects, you know, what we can do to help our community kids out. And we have 11 members on the board, and they stretch out from down to Las Vegas to San Diego up to north. And what we found is it's happening, not only happening in Carson, but all the other surrounding schools and schools outside of the LA area. So it's a big project. But what we wanted to focus mostly is on Carson High School. I think that's one of the things that my intent was to do, is to raise the awareness that we have a lot of kids. And you know, I saw that with my nephews and nieces, how way back in the early 90s, there was no motivation there for them to want to graduate. We had girls, like I said, that I was surprised and shocked that they wanted to drop out. They felt more comfortable dropping out than walking the graduation. And they were dropping out at the sophomore, junior level. And their parents, to my surprise, let them. And I never understood that. I think it comes to a point where the parents, either they're too busy, because they got too many things going with their church and work and everything else, or they love their kids so much that it's their decision, you know. But I think a lot of the parents, and especially in our area, they don't buy into the education yet. They think that that's all a duty that has to be performed by the public schools. That's their job to raise my kid, to educate them and all that, you know. But as far as like you put those same parents in the church, you know, they force their kids to go to church. They force their kids to be there at Sunday school. They force their kids, you know. That's the same type of energy I would hope they would do to our kids to keep them in public school or even private school. You know, I know the public school is kind of broken at this time. You know, there's a lot of problems with funding and all that. So even though the schools might be dysfunctional, there's a lot of things like our parents and the kids can get together to work things out or to help out the school. And that's one of the things PASS was trying to do. One of the funniest things when I was going to high school, like I said, football players always had the carte blanche to do what they wanted to do at the school. When I was in the 10th grade to play football, I had my school schedule during football season, my junior year. I had cafeteria, first, second, and third period. I had driver's ed, fourth period, and fifth I had typing, and then PE at 6. So I had straight A's. You know, I took that card home and showed my dad, and he was all so proud that, oh, look at my boy, straight A's, you know. If he only knew that cafeteria was there, and, you know, typing and driver's ed. So, you know, when I take that and I give it to my parents, they were so happy and all that. And I showed my brother and sister, they just couldn't stop laughing. I said, this is what they gave you? And, you know, you think it's funny at the time, but then all of a sudden when you're in the junior level and you say, like, okay, now I don't have no credits to graduate. So then all of a sudden it turns into the other way around. Cafeteria, you go work in the cafeteria, like setting up the lines, setting up their food, all that stuff. So I had it for 3 periods. So that was kind of back then, that was everybody was doing it. My brother was the only one that didn't want to do it. You know, but I loved it because we got free food. Back in our days, we played not only football, but we also played baseball and basketball. And it was like all of us were trying 3 sports, and it was pretty good back then. Nowadays, I think the focus is on one sport. You know, one sport, which is football, and a lot of our kids aren't even dedicating themselves to that. And the thing I like about now is that the girls back then had no opportunities like the boys did to get scholarships, athletic scholarships. Nowadays, it's there. You know, we got so many girls that could, so many things that the girls can get as far as athletic scholarships, from volleyball to softball to basketball to, I've even heard Samoan girls that are playing water polo. You know, there's all kinds of out there that these guys get full rides at good universities. You know, so I'm hoping the girls will take advantage of it. The boys, we need to try to get them back on focus of taking advantage of it. Because right now, athletic scholarship is probably the easiest things for our kids to get to. You know, because it's right now they're struggling with the academic part. At least try to balance both. You know, so we can get something out of it. First time I went back to Samoa was in, I think it was 65. And my mom and dad, we came from San Diego, we went on the airplane. I knew it was a long ride. I think I was only about 13 years old, 12 years old. But when we got there, it was like hot, humid. We went to my uncle's house. My uncle Tualo was the chief in the Pongo area. And I'm raised here in the States. Don't know too much about what's gone, but we went back there to visit family, and we went back there so my mom and dad could show us what the culture is all about. But when we got there, the first thing they did, and I didn't understand it until my mom explained it to me, was one of the chiefs, or talking chiefs, came out to the front of the house, yelled out to all the village, you know, yelling about our families here, this and that. And I got in trouble because I went out there and was laughing because he's yelling out the thing, so I was yelling too. I was wondering what he was doing, so next thing I know, I got a little slap in the back of the head and pulled back in the house. But yeah, that was the first experience I had of not knowing what the culture was like back there, of what the custom of what that was, what he was doing. Yeah, so that's back in the 60s. So that was a long time ago. The last time I went back there was in the 80s, late 80s. I went with my dad to dedicate a church back in his village in Lauli'i, a Catholic church. So I flew back with him because he was up in age and needed some assistance to go back. But that was the last time. I believe that if the thing with the culture is that, the kids, I know the parents, when they go to church or when they talk to the kids, they talk about the culture. The kids know about the culture. It's just getting them to practice the culture is something that's difficult here. In Samoa, it's you live it. Over here it's kind of, okay, well, my dad told me this, so, I just listen to my dad at home, but when I get out there, it's just the mentality of the environment out here in the city of LA and Carson that kind of takes away from our culture. But I guarantee if we get it to a point where we practice it at home too, and the same way in Samoa, our kids will be developed the same way. It's a constant education. Parents, they have to come in there and provide more culture, more history of the family and all that to the kids, and let them know what it's all about, identify this is your family, and get more involved with the culture, instilling in them, and then maybe us at the school at PASS or Price will carry that, practice it at the school, so there'll be more influence on the kids about the culture. Because I know when we were growing up, there was no culture with our kids. It was like my dad was, my dad had a 7th grade education. My mom, I don't think she even went besides elementary school. So all the parents that I knew, like my dad that came with him, all had the same type of education, nothing in the high school level. So a lot of them was just hard work, get the bread and money to the family, support the family. So our culture was never instilled on us, but we knew about it. And kids, like I said, or our elders back then were the ones that were trying to pass it on to us. Just like I feel that's our responsibility to try to pass it on to the next generation. My parents believed that I shouldn't speak Samoan. They could barely speak English, but they're telling me, I can understand all the Samoan. They're telling me all, but when I try to speak, they get upset because their thoughts were, hey, no, you're in America, so it's English. Do what the Palangis do what the white people tell us to do, and all that. I went to a seminar quite a while back about that. There was a group from Samoa, New Zealand, and everything that came here to Carson to kind of tell us the importance of learning Samoan language, keeping it intact. And I think Congressman Eni was the lead on that one. And so in fact, we met here at the hotel, and it was shocking. I was like, okay, I didn't know all that, that this is what we need to do. So I think when we started PASS, that was one of the things we wanted to do, is get the kids to start, if they're interested, come learn your language. We'll set it up free for you guys, but just come learn the language. And I want to bring that back, so try to do that. It's very important. Yeah, the first time we had, there's a place out in Compton called Park Village, and me and a couple of guys from our area we had good friends and family in Park Village, and we got a call about 10, 11 o'clock at night that there was some guys at Park Village giving trouble to the Samoan kids up there. So we had called all the other guys, and we headed out there, and we went up there. They didn't have the gates and all up there back then, but we pulled up in there, and there's like maybe about 6 or 7 black guys that were out there. And the first thing they were yelling out, blood's this, blood's that, and we're like, what the hell are they talking about? So next thing you know, we end up getting into a big hassle with those guys, and we thought that was over. Okay, we took care of that. The Bloods, we don't know what they were talking about, the Bloods and all that. Very next day, we get a big thing that there's 150 of them out there now. And it's okay, what is it? It's a blood gang. we didn't understand what the blood gang meant, so we said, okay, they want to do this again, let's go back up there. When we went out there, it was like the whole city. It was like about maybe 100 or more kids, all read it out, they were talking about, then telling us about this other gang that was up in Watts area, that they're all united in this, they're all going to back them up, they're going to squash the Samoans over here and that. It turned into a big thing, and that was our first experience, was just that, was being called out by the Bloods in that area, that they were going to control Park Village. What happened back then is we sat down with them, and I guess they talked with a lot of the kids that were out there, that they, join up with us, we'll protect you, that kind of stuff. But the main thing that they wanted to do was have the Samoans on their side. So that's what they were out to get. They wanted us on their side to help them out, But that was just the very beginning. I think it was like the late 70s. I already had like 2 kids. I'm sitting over here and I'm getting calls like Big John was still alive way back then. When Big John calls, he's like Paul Revere. He makes that call and everybody like, okay, time to get up and get in your cars, let's go. So, you got married guys like me and about maybe 10, 15 other guys. All okay, let's go to Big John's. Big John had a whole garage full of kids that he was keeping over there. We all head out to to see what we can do to help out. In the mid-'80s, where they hit Carson Park, they have a festival out there, and my nephew was out there, and they were playing basketball, and I guess they beat up on some of the kids that were there, and so they were still playing on the courts, and next thing you know, they had about 3 carloads come by and shoot up the basketball court. One of our kids got hit, and that just raised the whole level of all the Samoans coming out. And then after that, there was a couple of incidents after that with the Carson Park area, the gangs that were there. Yeah, but the drive-bys they were really big in the mid-'80s to early '90s. And then when all the laws changed, it got real strict on a lot of the stuff, it started turning around. But yeah, drive-bys were frequent. You'd have, especially like outside of our area too, the Carson-Compton border was, it's like a little shootout thing. Carson kids see Compton or vice versa as a little hurry up and shoot them. Rather than hang out in the streets, Big John would give me a place to hang out. So what Big John thought, okay, rather than hanging out in the street or going to friends' houses and still starting trouble, he took them in and made a commitment that, hey, you stay in my garage, you stay at my house, and you do what I say, and everything we do will be for good things, not for anything else. So a lot of the kids, he turned their whole life around by keeping them at the garage, but it was nothing that the parents kicked them out. It was nothing. The parents, in fact, Big John used to go to the parents' house and talk to them. Let me have your kid, instead of him running away. I'll keep him at the garage, I'll take care of him, and we'll discipline them, I'll discipline them, we'll make sure it's done. The rest of we have a whole group that will raise your kids, help them out. And that's what we did. Even if I live 5-6 miles away, if I get a call or if I know something's going on, I'll let John know, and we'll try to, whatever problems it is, if it's chasing down one of the Samoan kids, then we'll do that. If it's one of the girls trying to run away, we'll help out with that. Do what it takes to get your education, whether it be academically or getting it through sports, because if you don't get it a scholarship type deal, you'll be paying for a long time for the new type of cost it is, for the new cost for education nowadays. So yeah, I hope that we'll have more groups come up like PASS and PICIT and AINGA and Samoan Athletes in Action. I'd like to see us all as a big coalition to help the youth come up, instead of all individual organizations still trying to push things. I'd like to see us all together and push at one time, and I think it makes us a little bit stronger. But I hope the education is, the kids buy into it and the parents buy into it. That is the most important thing right now. Hi, I'm Sai Momoli, I'm Polynesian, and I'm changing the world.